When people talk, listen, man, I'm going to raise that red flag.
This narrative, especially after 1 year.
1 year.
One bad year. It's one big splash move. And because I don't think people understand how much cap space we can create.
Alex, I want to ask you, because you're a very humble person.
And I'm never going to be right about anything.
Yeah.
I was right.
What's up, everyone? Back again, and I'm gonna jump right back in again because I don't really vamp here. Just kind of start talking. But so here's what's happening, and I feel like I vent about this quite a bit, but we as fans tend to just make up things, make up narratives, make up ways to fix teams, to have unrealistic expectations. I try to do my best to kind of turn those expectations without seeming too negative. Even though we're the Panthers and there's a lot of negative things to be negative about. Anyway, so we are of this mindset, and I don't know how it happened, but we have a terrible defense, right? We're the worst defense in the league, one of the worst defenses of all time. And we say that the way to fix it is that we have to go all in on defense in this draft, right? Because there's no other way. And it's just nonsense. It's just like for whatever reason, defenses have won championships for 50, 60, 70 years in the NFL. But for some reason, because the way the Eagles won this Super Bowl, it has gotten into everybody's mind that the reason that they won it is because Jalen Carter. Because they drafted like Jalen Carter. And they built this defense through him, which is totally incorrect. Like, he was a good pick, but he's a young guy. Most of the Eagles' picks over the years have been offensive players. They got Josh Sweat and Milton Williams, in later rounds. But they're drafting Dallas Goedert in the second round, Miles Sanders in the second round. They're drafting Nelson Aguilar in the first round. They're drafting Jalen Reagor in the first round. They're drafting Devonta Smith in the first round. They're trading a first-round pick for A.J. Brown. They are signing Darius Slay and Hassan Reddick and James Bradbury and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They're drafting offense. But just because they drafted Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, this notion that that's the only way you can do it. So if we want to be like the Eagles, we got to do that. Well, we want to be like the Eagles. We're drafting skill position and offensive linemen like crazy. That's how they do it. It's just, what? What? We got to be like the Eagles. Okay, so keep drafting receiver in the first round until one hits. Keep drafting skill players on and on and on. I mean, you're talking about Jalen Reagor miss. Nelson Aguilar miss. Devonta Smith finally hits. Dallas Goedert in the second round. Miles Sanders in the second round. Spending money on Saquon Barkley. Quez Watkins. They drafted two guys. They drafted Johnny Wilson and Anais Smith. Anais? Anise. I think it's Anais Smith, Johnny Wilson, and they traded a third for John Dotson. So you're talking about three picks in an offseason where they already had A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith that they just extended. They just extended A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and still used 3 draft picks on receivers. Because they don't exist in free agency. You have, like, the goal of every team, just look at every good team. Like, good teams. Look at the 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl. You have Kansas City, who just went Worthy, Rashee Rice, Miko Hardman, Sky Moore. They traded for Kadarius Toney. They're trying to get wide receivers. They signed Hollywood Brown. They signed Juju Smith-Schuster. They signed DeAndre Hopkins. These are the 2 best teams in the league, and they're telling you what to do. But Jalen Carter. That's the way they won the Super Bowl. Did you see how great that defense was? It is so unbelievable. And what did the Bills do? They're like, crap, we got rid of Diggs, but we're going to spend the 33rd pick on Keon Coleman. And I'm going to go get Amari Cooper. I'm drafting Kincaid in the 1st round. I'm getting Jared Cook in the 3rd round. But I'm still drafting Ray Davis. I'm trying to give my my quarterback as many weapons as possible. You got 2 solid tight ends. You went and got Amari Cooper. You got Keon Coleman. You got Khalil Shakir. Matt Collins out of nowhere was performing. But they keep on because that's what you do. That's what. Who they played in the AFC? No, NFC. It was the Commanders. What did the Commanders do? We're going to go get Ben Sinnott in the 2nd round. We're going to go get former All-Pro Austin Eckler, former All-Pro Ertz. Try to get the best wide receivers in the market that we can. And Noah Brown and Zacchaeus, Jameson Crowder. Just try to get weapons where we can get them. But that's what they were signing. This is what they did. Actually, that's a good segue. This is a good segue. To everyone that says that you have to draft defense to change the team, I guess. I still don't completely understand it, because we drafted defense 3 years in a row. In 2019, we drafted Brian Burns. We were a 5-win team. 2020, we drafted Derek Brown. We were a 5-win team. 2021, we drafted J.C. Horn. We were a 5-win team. We've done this before. We've done this. We've done this before. You know what? You know who completely changed our franchise? Christian McCaffrey. We got him with the 8th pick. We went from a 7-win team to an 11-win team, and we were this close to beating the Saints and making something happen that year. Bryce Young is going to change the franchise. We let Brian Burns walk. He was two-time Pro Bowler. What else can you ask for your guy? He was a 2-time Pro Bowler. We traded him away. This general manager traded him away. He obviously doesn't value that position, I guess. So let's go segue to Washington. Washington had the worst defense in the league last year. They gave up 389 yards per game, which was the worst by 14 yards. They gave up 59 touchdowns last year, which was the most by 5 touchdowns. They were the worst defense in the league. They brought back 4 players. Jonathan Allen, who missed 9 games this year. Deron Payne, who had 42 solo tackles and 4 sacks. To put it in perspective, A'Shawn Robinson had 43 solo tackles and 5.5 sacks. A'Shawn Robinson and Darren Payne were basically the same. And Darren Payne got hurt. And the only other 2 they brought back was their left corner in Benjamin St. Justice, who was in season 4. He's a guy. And Quan Martin at free safety, who's a guy. That's 7 of their 11 defensive starters were done either by trade or free agency. Clelin Ferrell, defensive end, free agent. Dorrance Armstrong, defensive end, free agent. Frankie Louvu, linebacker, free agent. Bobby Wagner, linebacker, free agent. Dante Fowler, linebacker, free agent. Jeremy Chin, strong safety, free agent. Marshawn Lattimore, trade. And Mike Sanistrell, they drafted. He's a rookie. They only brought back 4 guys and completely changed their defense, drafting one dude. And they were in the NFC Championship game. They were by far the worst defense in the league last year. By far. They got rid of Montez Sweat, Chase Young, Forbes. Like, they got rid of all the first-round picks that they had. Because what did they say? They said, we got a rookie quarterback. We need to surround him with talent. We're going to focus on that. Coleman was there. They drafted him to be his left tackle. They drafted offensive linemen. They drafted Ben Sinnott. They brought in receivers. They brought in a tight end. They brought in a pass-catching running back. These teams are telling you what to do. Like, Tampa Bay, who's ran our division for 3 years, they got Mike Evans and they got Chris Godwin. They were one of the best offenses in the league last year. They went and go get a dynamic running back and a dynamic receiver. And they won the division again. Freaking weird. Weird that the good teams do the same thing over and over and over again. It's so weird. So weird. The 49ers they just extended Brandon Ayuk. They're paying Deebo Samuel. They have George Kittle. They traded for Christian McCaffrey. They have Juwan Jennings, who broke out pretty big last year. They went out and drafted Gorindo, who is probably one of the most dynamic as far as talented backs in the league. And they spent a first-round pick on Pearsall. First-round pick. They've run the league for how many years? So you're talking about an all-pro at tight end, basically, an all-pro at running back. You draft Ayuk in the first round. You draft Deebo in the second round. You draft Pearsall in the first round. You extend Juwan Jennings. Like, they gave him a 3-year deal. I hate that I keep saying it, but like, look at what the good teams do. Just do what good teams do. 49ers been in the Super Bowl 2 of the last, 5 years? All right. It was just like a little rant I went on. Now let's talk about keeping the Panthers from being an outlier in the worst way possible. I've done all this, right? I've literally documented every single quarterback that I can think of that are still playing, and showed, and am going to show you what their teams gave them year 3. Because year 3, you have to see what you have in your quarterback. You have to. Because this is the next 10 years, in theory, of your franchise. Unless you want to be the New York Giants that paid Daniel Jones, and now they're like crap. The Bears weirdly did well with this. They gave Trubisky guys in year 3. All right, we gave you guys. We're gonna move on. Fields gave you guys year 3. Hey, we're gonna move on. That's why. That's why you give them to them. Because if we say, just say they're the Panthers, and you say, hey, we're gonna roll out 35-year-old Adam Thielen. He's obviously gonna. I don't want to actually. I'm not gonna say that. I was gonna say that he obviously gonna get hurt, but he's 35 years old. Like, he's playing a full 17-game season is very unlikely. And we're gonna give you the 32nd pick in last year's draft, who is a project player and an undrafted free agent, a 4th-round tight end, and a 4th-round running back that is probably a top 15 back in the league. So let me start off by saying this. Us as the fans, and I'm saying us as the fans based on like what I see on Twitter as a whole. I know that I'm not putting everybody in a box. I'm saying that us as fans see that we have our starting 3 receivers right now are Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, and Adam Thielen, with our only tight end being Sanders. So let's just take what Xavier Legette, Coker, Thielen, and Sanders did last year. Just their production last year. Altogether, they had 1,932 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp in 2021 had 1,947 yards and 16 touchdowns. One player gave more production in one season than the 4 starting pass catchers as of right now for the Panthers. Oh, also that team that Cooper Kupp was on, they won the Super Bowl. So let's just go and show what all other competent or incompetent franchises treat their 3rd-year quarterback. So let's just say we don't even know what's going to happen with C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson, because I'm assuming they're going to keep on adding to their skill positions. But let's just see what C.J. Stroud has. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, maybe Diggs back, that they sent a 2nd-round pick for last year because they said, hey, we need to get our young quarterback some help. The 44th pick in the draft, Jonathan Mechie, Dalton Schultz, and Joe Mixon, who's a 2-time Pro Bowler. That's who they surrounded, and they drafted Brevin Jordan, who should be back. Xavier Hutchinson, like they got. I can go on forever. What guys they got? Anthony Richardson, he has 2nd-round pick. Pittman, who's a 1,000-yard receiver. Josh Downs, 3rd-round pick. And Alec Pierce, who's a 2nd-round pick. Top 3 running back in the NFL, Jonathan Taylor. 3rd-round tight end, and Jelani Woods. He's been hurt. And even with all that, they still went and used a 2nd on A.D. Mitchell last year. Yep. That's what they did. So they're basic. So you're just talking about you have a solid receiving core. Nico Collins is a top 7 to 10 tight end receiver in the league, right? You still use a 2nd-round pick to go get Stephon Diggs. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and Alec Pierce with Jonathan Taylor is probably a top 10 skill position group that you have in the league, and you still went out and got A.D. Mitchell. So these are just quarterbacks before their 3rd year. I'm very confident they're still going to be adding to that room or those rooms. So let's work backwards as far as quarterbacks. So this was the 2023 draft. So let's go to 2022. And so you're looking at Brock Purdy. Already went through this. Now, I'm going to reiterate. Our group is a second-year, 32nd pick, and Xavier Legette, undrafted Jalen Coker, 35-year-old Adam Thielen, and 4th-round pick Sanders. Right? That's our group. Now I'm going to continue in what these third-year quarterbacks get. Year 3, Purdy, you got Ayuk, Debo, CMC, Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Pearsall, and they still went and got Garindo, and they had Jordan Mason. With Elijah Mitchell, if you consider that, like, whatever. Going backwards from there. Trevor Lawrence, year 3, they went and got him traded for Calvin Ridley, who was a first-round pick. He had Christian Kirk, who was the 47th overall pick. They went and got Evan Ingram, who is a first-round overall pick. They drafted Etienne, who is a first-round pick. They went and got Zay Jones, who's a second-round pick. And then they still drafted Tank Bigsby in the second round. That's what Lawrence got. Keep going. Justin Fields, traded for DJ Moore, had Darnell Mooney. They traded a second for Claypool. I know it didn't work out just because the Bears are the Bears, but they still tried. They gave a second for Claypool, Cole Kmet, and they drafted Roshan Johnson and brought in Deontay Foreman. Keep going back. Joe Burrow spent the 33 pick on Higgins. Got a top 10 pick on Chase. They had Tyler Boyd. They went out and got first-round tight end Hayden Hurst, and they had Pro Bowl running back Joe Mixon. Keep going. Tua drafted Jalen Waddle in the first round. I think he was 7th. He was right after Devonta Smith. I think he was 7th overall. You traded. This is what they traded for Hill. The 29th, 50th, 2 4ths, and a 5th for Tyreek Hill. So they traded for Tyreek Hill. They brought in Cedric Wilson Jr. from the Saints. Mike Gesicki, who was the 42nd overall pick at tight end. Jeff Wilson Jr. and Mostert. And then they paid Edmonds. Edmonds didn't really work out, but they tried. They gave him money to come in and work in that system. I give you credit for trying, even if you don't do it well. Herbert had Keenan Allen, who's an All-Pro, Mike Williams, who's a top 10 pick, Austin Eckler, who's an All-Pro, and Hunter Henry. Keep going. We have Jalen Hurts, 2019. They drafted Devonta Smith, got A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, who was a second-round pick, Quez Watkins, Sanders. They got guys. Keep going. Oh, we have Kyler Murray. They added AJ Green, They drafted Christian Kirk at the 47th pick. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins. They brought in Zach Ertz, James Conner, Edmonds. Just say Hopkins, and it's better than anything else we got. Keep going. Daniel Jones had Saquon Barkley, who was a top 2 pick. They drafted Sterling Shepard in the first round, Evan Ingram in the first round, Kadarius Toney in the first round. They went and got Kenny Golladay. They had John Ross, who was a first-round pick, Darius Slayton, and they brought in Kyle Rudolph. Keep going. Baker Mayfield. They brought in 5-time Pro Bowler Jarvis Landry. They traded for OBJ. They traded Jabril Peppers, the 17th overall pick, and the 95th overall pick. First round Njoku, first round was Chubb a first round pick? I think Chubb. He was either early second or late first. They brought in Kareem Hunt. They drafted Peoples-Jones, and they brought in Austin Hooper. Gave him a lot of weapons. Keep going. Josh Allen. They traded for Diggs. They traded the 22nd overall pick, the 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, and the following year's 4th round pick. So they got their star. They had Beasley that year, who was an All-Pro. John Brown, who was a 1,000-yard receiver the year before. They drafted Gabriel Davis. They drafted Singletary, and they drafted Zach Moss while already having Dawson Knox. Keep going. Lamar Jackson. They drafted Hollywood Brown. They had All-Pros Andrews. They drafted J.K. Dobbins that year with the In the second round, they brought in Mark Ingram, who was a first-round pick. They brought in Willie Snead and Duvernay, who's been to several Pro Bowls now before punt returns. Mitch Trubisky they got Allen Robinson from Jacksonville. They got Cordell Patterson. Anthony Miller was drafted. David Montgomery was drafted, who's doing great right now. They brought in, they drafted Tariq Cohen and Gabriel. Keep going. Deshaun Watson got All-Pro DeAndre Hopkins, first-round pick in Will Fuller. Carlos Hyde from the 49ers. They traded for Duke Johnson from the Browns. And they brought in Kenny Stills from the Dolphins. Was Kenny Stills from the Dolphins, or did they draft him? I think he was a Dolphin. Doesn't matter. Keep going. Patrick Mahomes had Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Demarcus Robinson. Is it Demarcus Robinson? He's on the Rams now. They went and got LaShawn McCoy from the Eagles. So they had a pretty stacked offense. Keep going. Jared Goff had All-Pro Todd Gurley. Second-round pick Robert Woods. First-round pick Brandon Cooks from the Saints. Cooper Kupp, who ended up being a Triple Crown winner. Everett and Higbee to be their tight ends. Keep going. Carson Wentz had Jordan Matthews, Alshon Jeffrey, Golden Tate, Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders, Darren Sproles. They drafted Nelson Aguilar. They drafted Nelson Aguilar in the first. They drafted Dallas Goedert in the second. They brought in Mike Wallace from the Steelers. And they brought in Jay Ajayi from the Dolphins. Keep going. Dak Prescott. The Cowboys traded for Amari Cooper. They drafted Gallup. They drafted Ezekiel Elliott in the first round. They had All-Pro. I don't want to call him All-Pro Beasley because he wasn't All-Pro yet, but a very productive Beasley. They brought in Allen Hurns. They brought in first-round pick Tavon Austin, and they drafted Dalton Schultz. Keep going. Jameis Winston. They brought in Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Godwin, Doug Martin, Cameron Brate, and O.J. Howard in the first round. Tight end. Keep going. Mariota got Corey Davis, who was a top 10 pick. Eric Decker from this was the year after the big. Yeah, this was the year after the big blow up in the Broncos where he was Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, and Decker were like just insane. So they ended up getting Decker, who was a third round pick. They drafted most likely future Hall of Famer Derrick Henry. They brought in All-Pro DeMarco Murray, who might have been a 2,000-yard running back. He was a top back, at least for fantasy football that year. And they drafted Johnny Smith in the third round. Keep going. Derek Carr. They drafted Amari Cooper in the first round. They brought in Crabtree, and they drafted Latavius Murray. That's a total of 23. 23 that at least had two studs. At least two players, if it wasn't two wide receivers or a wide receiver and a tight end, then it was at least a wide receiver and a pass catching back. But man, you're talking about these sort. I mean, I can just close my eyes and point. Like Brock Purdy has Ayuk, Debo, CMC, Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Pearsall. Like, here, Kyler had AJ Green, Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz. Like, can you imagine if Bryce had half of that? And was so frustrating. And I'll post this so you have it to actually read, and I'll clean it up a little bit. But it's so frustrating that anyone would suggest, oh, we're good on offense. We really need to focus on the defense because we were the worst defense in the league. But I just told you that the Commanders were the worst defense of the league. And they changed it overnight with free agents. They drafted one guy. That wasn't even a difference maker. And then it was just a bunch of old vet free agents. One guy was a starter on their defense. And it wasn't even a first-round pick. The first-round pick was, of course, Jaden Daniels. The Eagles were 30th in points against last year. They hired Vic Fangio. They were first. That's with Bryce Huff getting hurt. That's with Bradbury getting hurt. That's with Nakobe Dean getting hurt. That's with trading Hassan Reddick. That's with Fletcher Cox retiring. All that stuff happened. They added Vic Fangio, and they went from 30th to 1st. I'm the most important thing for us to do, because we have 23, I give you 23 examples of quarterbacks in their third year getting guys, getting weapons. You absolutely 1 billion% cannot roll Bryce out with two second-year receivers, a 35-year-old, and a fourth-round tight end. Absolutely not. Not when you have the standard being the 49ers, having Ayuk, Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, CMC, Kittle. Like, that's the standard. That's what we should be doing. How many guys can you name on their defense? How many guys did they give up on their defense? Like, Greenlaw's going to be gone. They got rid of Armstead last year. Like, they're always getting rid of guys in their defense. Like, even we did that. We as the Panthers said, we don't need Brian Burns. We don't need Dante Jackson. We don't need Von Bell. We set that standard of see ya. We didn't really do that. I mean, I guess like DJ Chark wasn't under contract, but that would have been the only one. So when people talk, listen, right? We didn't do that. We didn't say see ya to our offensive players. I mean, maybe like ISM or did we get rid of? Did we get rid of anybody? But we said that. We said, hey, we don't need this pass rusher, this first-round talent, this two-time Pro Bowl first-round talent. We said we don't need that. We set that standard. Hey, this starter on a good defense, Dante Jackson, we don't need you. We said that. We said we don't need Chase On. Chase On went to the Raiders and was pretty good. We said see ya Yetur Gross-Matos. We said see ya Marquise Haynes. We said see ya Iko Leota. So if we just think about all of this stuff, like, logically, hey, really good teams load up on weapons in the draft. Really good teams just cover up their defense with experienced vets. We as Panthers said see ya to several pass rushers. Maybe it would just be odd. We would be the only team in years to roll out that sort of talent on offense. Like, probably since, like, the 90s. The whole rest of the league is telling you this is what you're supposed to do. I would, oh God, I don't want to say I'll be shocked with anything with the Panthers. We're going to bring in talent on offense. It's just going to happen. Whether hopefully it's in free agency because that opens up the draft for us. But we can't be this incompetent. We just can't. It's not going to happen. Like, that's a new level of incompetence. Like, that's just moronic. If you look at all of these, you have a franchise quarterback that you spent up for. You gave up all this capital for. He's also a fairly big cap hit for you. There's no way you're throwing out a 35-year-old and 2 second-round guys or 2 second-year guys. I can't. You just can't. So, all that said is everybody relax on the priority being defense. It's not. It is a priority, but the Commanders literally just showed you. They brought in 7 new players, and one of them was a draft pick. You fix your defense in free agency. Eagles' first Super Bowl, they got Hassan Reddick, Darius Slay, Bradbury, Ndamukong Suh, Levante, Limbo Joseph, CJ Gardner-Johnson. All right. The world. That's how the NFL works. All right. Thanks for listening, Bill.